So today we're talking about how to continue folding after a hexagon, triangle, trapezoid start. And we're going to be exploring this through a more theoretical side of things instead of folding out on a grid. So no grid required today. And I'm going to start by going through some examples. Then we're going to go and look at some diagrams and build out some crease patterns and see what actually are the different options for these different choices of starts. So first off, this particular start is going to look familiar from Advent of Tess. I think the specific one it's named after is Medallions here, the final day of Advent of Tess. And these two have exactly the same center, but they're different because of what twist was chosen to go next. And so if I flip that over, here I have these open threefold mixed depth hexagon twists, and the corners are tucked under for some of them because they're overlapping with the next ones over. And in this one, I have a stretched rhombus, a mixed depth rhombus twist. So that's two of the choices that we can make. And in that particular tessellation, the third choice didn't work out well. But the third choice is to have a twofold mixed depth hexagon instead of the threefold. So you can get into a huge variety of options, because once you've chosen your hexagon, the triangle that goes around that, so choosing the hexagon from choice of open or closed, the triangle from choice of open or closed, front or back, for both of those options of hexagon, and then the trapezoid, also open or closed, front or back, that is going to be 4 times 4 times 2 is 32 different options. And then there's another option still, which is what orientation do you want your trapezoid to be relative to those triangle pleats? So these two are the same choices of hexagon and triangle, same choice of trapezoid, but they're attached differently, and so it makes a different pattern. For these two in particular, they both use a mixed depth rhombus to continue, but there's actually two different forms of mixed depth rhombus, and this one is the friendlier form, that one's the unfriendly. We'll be getting into that later on when we're looking at crease patterns. And there's, all kinds of options. This is pretty much the same as this one, except that it uses closed triangles instead of open for the central motif. And then it's repeating with these open, the threefold hexagons instead of the twofold rhombus. Now this one doesn't exactly look like it belongs in this group, but there's a closed hexagon with closed triangles closely spaced around it. And then this shape, the rhombus with the little notch, that's actually the closed trapezoid twist. And then it's feeding into this bar that is not anything that you would recognize, because as far as I know, this is the only time this twist has ever been used. It's a twofold mixed depth hexagon, but instead of the skinny one, it's the one that's double depth on 4 of the pleats. And then it's feeding into these triple triangles on the back. Oh, and I should say it's double depth on 4 sides and also hybridized. So some of these pleats are shifted around to make it into the long rectangle instead of a stretched out hexagon. And here we have another way of completing actually a very similar start. So this one They have the same choices. These two have the same choices of hexagon, triangle, and trapezoid, but again, the trapezoid is connected differently on this one. And this one uses the skinny mixed depth hexagon. And when you're using the two-fold hexagon, you also need to find another triangle to complete the pattern. And again, we'll be digging into all of that. So I'm going to bring up screen so we can play with these shapes and see what's going on. And let's go ahead and dive into it. So these shapes are tiles. And basically what you need to know about a tile is you stick a twist in it. And the way you stick a twist in it is you have pleats that are coming out of each edge of the tile. And so you can stick tiles next to each other. And that is saying that this red hexagon has a pleat that goes to the triangle twist in the white triangle. So I can take that and say, I'm going to duplicate that, rotate it, stick it on the other side there, and I'm going to copy that all the way around, because whatever I do on one side of this hexagon, I'm going to do on all 6 sides. And then for our trapezoid, we can either stick it here or here. Those are the 2 different ways of connecting them. I'm going to arbitrarily pick one, duplicate, and copy to the other side so I can easily get that going on. And actually, I realize now I need to switch the colors on these. So the important thing about the colors is that we're going to have 2 colors. We're going to have a right-handed color and a left-handed color. I'm going to copy one of these little triangles as well, and that's going to end up being right-handed also. And so when we're continuing outwards from this hexagon, triangle, trapezoid start, we need to fill this corner. The key thing is, if you want all your pleats to lay down flat, then the pleats from a right-handed twist need to connect with pleats from a left-handed twist. And so we can guarantee that by coloring neighboring tiles different colors. So I need a tile that will fill this whole space. So I can't just do another trapezoid there, because there's no way to get the double depth edge and a single depth edge with that 120 degrees between them. But all 4 of these shapes, you can do that. I'll move these out of the way so we can see. And here coming in, it looks like the rhombus doesn't fit, but we're just going to mirror that. And there it goes. And I'm going to start making copies of the center so we can see all the options in parallel. I'm going to bring that up here. And let's actually arrange those slightly differently. I'm going to group these so I can add new stuff easily and move it around. Oh, that was a duplicate instead of a group. So we can see like what's happening with each of these different options at the same time. And so we're putting the rhombus around this one over here. And I'll zoom in as we are doing this. So I can duplicate those, rotate them around. And then I can immediately copy over the center and I'll need a rhombus to go in between them. And one question that we have for ourselves as we're folding out and out and out is, am I going to reach a place where I have a good stopping point where all my pleats are running out and not running over each other? And that is something that the tiling diagram can help us answer. So if we make all of our copies, and I'm going to stick this here and then copy. One of the things that we start to see is, oh hey, we do have some lines, and I'm going to, or I should say some hexagons. I'm going to make that, going to make it outline blue and thicker so you can see it. Even thicker. Okay. And we can see another one. So what we're really looking for here is that the edges of this hexagon are using edges of the underlying shapes. That's interesting. There we go. And so you can see, like, I'm going to need to go 1, 2, kind of 3 layers out as far as single twist layers to get to this next repeat. And this is going to be a bit difficult, but it's doable. And then if we were to repeat the pattern even further out, I'm not convinced that we would get to something that has another of these hexagons, because the longest line that goes straight in the pattern, like on this tiling, it might be these lines. It might be exactly this length. And it's just lucky for us that they're all lining up together. So that might be the maximum hexagon that we can, like bigger hexagon that we can find. That'll be a nice stopping point without pleats overlapping each other. And you'll notice that this doesn't exactly line up with the repeats. Like the repeats are going this direction and those corners are going this direction, and that is a slightly different direction. So we're going to have some project planning choices to make in there. But for right now, let's explore some of our other options. So I'm going to grab this one and bring it up here. The other option where we don't need extra stuff to let us finish is this 3-fold hexagon. And I'm going to duplicate that and rotate so I can find the copy on the other side. And with this one, again, we can go and snap a new copy on exactly where it's needed. And I'm going to go ahead and add that one to help us to do this in fewer steps. And here, okay, our next bigger hexagon is going to be here. And I'm not convinced that there's ever going to be another one. So this is something that makes this pattern a little bit harder. There's not that many tiling breaks, and you're going out and you're needing to add, like from this start, you're needing to add kind of 2 layers to get out to a place where there is a good stopping point. Whereas with the one down here, you just added your rhombuses and you were good to go. And by the way, this is something that I'm going to be folding and teaching in my Tessellations by Tiles office hour tomorrow, which is this start that we were looking at for medallions, the final day of Advent of Tess, uses this tiling with these threefold mixed depth hexagons. But it's going to be easier for us to practice folding it in this tiling with the mixed up rhombi. So because we have this hexagon closer in. And then let's take a look at some of our other options. So if we have this twofold hexagon here, and we duplicate that, copy it to the other side, and as we go around, if we take our center and copy it over, we notice that there's something missing. And specifically, there's a triangle missing. And so we're going to need to grab that triangle and stick it in place. And now I'm going to copy these to the other side and copy them all the way around. So now let's see here where we have those other hexagons. We have one just after the twofold hexagon and its triangle. And we have another one out here. And it might even be possible that we get another one afterwards, which we can find out. We can say, okay, let's move those to the side for right now, and see what happens if I do another, Inkscape. Gotta love it, gotta hate it. Let's move those so we're free to work over here and duplicate that guy up here. We can duplicate our core pattern over here, and we're going to need the triangle there and this guy. We're going to need another triangle and mixed up hexagon there. This is looking kind of promising, actually. I'm going to copy this over as well, and I think that one is going to be a duplicate of this, so I can get rid of that. I'm going to grab all the new stuff that I just added, and I'm going to group it. So when I duplicate and copy it over, it's easier to then grab the other side. And let's grab an inner copy to post here. Looks like we're not quite going to get another hexagon. So I'm going to copy over, and Inkscape is getting a little bit overloaded at this point. That's okay. I'm going to copy these as well. Just adding to my pattern. And so if we bring our hexagons back, and they're showing behind some stuff, so I'm going to hit home to bring them forward. And we're looking a little bit further out, trying to see, do we have another concentric hexagon around this? And on this line of twists, no, we don't. 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 So I'm guessing that second one is going to be our last one that has this property. So interesting to fold as you get further out, for sure. And you can use pseudo tiling breaks to get through some of this. It's a bit harder with the mixed depth twists to use those pseudo tiling breaks, but it is definitely something if you do want more repeats. Like I actually, let's see, I folded a bit past the second tiling break. I got actually out in this area for this particular piece, and that worked out pretty well. I needed to improvise a bit at the edge where there's some pleats coming together, but there weren't a ton of pleats coming together. And last but not least, and I'm going to move this over so that we actually have space to draw it. If you choose to use this mixed depth hexagon with 4 double depth pleats. So I should probably have mentioned that the edge length of the shape is proportional to the pleat depth. It's proportional to how far apart the mountain and the valley are. And so we can take these, and again here I'm going to need a triangle to resolve the pattern here. And so I can duplicate that around, and that sets me up to place my next my next repeat of the center. And let's see what happens if I copy that all the way around. So again here we do get a hexagon around the center when we finished our first round of mixed depth hexagons, and we are getting another one out here, but that's probably going to be the last one. So that is where kind of easy mode ends, and you're going to end up with some stopping point where the pleats are not all going to be heading in the same direction on a particular side. So that's our options for how to how to add on, how to repeat these, whoop, missed one, these centers that start with a hexagon, then triangle, then trapezoid. So we've got our threefold option where we have our twofold position in the space between things, but we don't have good options for stopping necessarily. And then we have these 3 different twofold options. The rhombus will get you the densest repeats, and with the rhombus you don't have to worry about what's in the threefold position, and we'll be getting into that when we pull up the crease patterns, because it's between twists. It's not in a twist. And then with the hexagons, the twofold mixed depth hexagons, with the skinny one and the fat one, we're going to have a triangle in a position of threefold rotational symmetry. So the things on 3 sides of it are the same. Just like for our central hexagon, the things on 6 sides of it are the same. It's the same idea with the 2-fold and 3-fold positions. And I mean, you know me, there's always more ways to do these things. There's a really huge variety of options for how you fold stuff. And actually, I'm spotting an option right now that could be interesting. If you take, let's see how to pull this out. If I have my center and then, actually I'll just go with that and duplicate it, I'm going to see if I can come up with a new option on the fly here. So if I take that as a group and duplicate and do that, now I can grab one of these double depth triangles here, and that should work out. I'm going to stick another of these triangles out here, and that should get me a new repeating pattern. Voila. Okay, so now we have another option. The repeats are even further apart. And we have a little bit of hexagons outside of the center. We've got the one we knew we would have. Right there. And then there's another one here. And that's probably going to be the last one. So yeah, there's options, and there's always more options. So, oh, this is cool. This is cool. So if you are using a, so this is me exploring things. This is how I think. When I'm finding new ways of making tessellations, this is how I do it. I'm looking at the tiling and I'm seeing like, okay, you've got your motif, and that triangle there doesn't have to be in a position of 3-fold rotational symmetry anymore. That got moved out here. And the position of 2-fold rotational symmetry is now in between these 4 twists. That's nice, because it means that, so the patterns that are the most flexible are the ones where not all of the twists, or I should say not all of the positions of rotational symmetry are inside of twists. It just means you have a lot more choices. And so, okay, I did a calculation yesterday that there were like 380 something, 384, I think, ways to make these different options, but that wasn't actually taking into account the fat hexagon, and it wasn't taking into account this tiling that I just found. So that would make it something more like 10, something more like 600 different patterns that you can get starting from that hexagon, triangle, trapezoid center, of which I've explored about a dozen. But one thing I will say, like this tiling compared to this one, you will need a lot more grid to get those repeats in place, to get the same number of repeats of the pattern. So yeah, you can always find more new and interesting tilings. And I bet you could do the same thing with this double depth, and then it would be around a single depth hexagon, or sorry, triangle on that corner. Yeah, you totally could. So what I did here is I looked at this edge here, and I said, okay, single, single, double, cool. And if I take the opposite side, single, single, double, and I match up those two singles, those colors are going to work out right there. And then the doubles are going to contribute to the same twist. So that color is going to work out. And that's how I found this new tiling right now. And it's a good thing it's in this document because I have a lot of these mixed depth tilings in here, of which you can see this guy. And one of the things that I was exploring with this particular drawing of it is, can I make sure that these pleats that are hybrid are lining up with each other, and then the pleats that are going to the trapezoids are lining up with each other for this particular pattern. And they can, which is fun, because you can use all kinds of other tips and tricks. So yeah, so here we've got that other twofold that I was talking about. Here's another one. You can do all kinds of things, crazy things with these shapes. Like you can take a hexagon, triangle, rhombus, triangle pattern and just, you know, stretch out some of those rhombi and hexagons. And you can do that a couple different ways. Here's another one. There's, yeah, so much variability that you can do. Actually, that's a different tiling, but story for another day. I just love exploring these things. So let's take a look at some crease patterns. And I'm gonna start with just the twists themselves. I'm gonna make some semi-random choices. I'm gonna arbitrarily pick, and I'm going to, for today's purposes, pick twists that are on opposite sides from their neighbors, so that so we can have repeats that we see within 64 grid spacings. That's more or less how it works. And I'm going to pick choices I haven't done before. So I'm going to do open hexagon and open triangle on the back. And for my trapezoid, let's have that be, it's going to be on the front, but am I choosing closed or open? Let's do closed. And I'm going to hop over to another file once Inkscape brings up my templates. Yeah, so the exploration potential here in this set of structures is massive. I'm probably not going to get to them particularly soon because I'm exploring another massive space, which is hybrid hexagon twists. And so I'm going to bring these guys in, and I'm going to say, let's have our triangle at tube plate spacing. Sure, that seems good. And I'm going to edit this a little bit. So this is me coming up with new patterns. On the fly, as one does. And like we saw, I'm going to have a lot of choices for how to continue this. And I'm going to rotate this guy over here, and I need to decide how this trapezoid is going to fit in. I'm going to need to rotate that at least once. So it's going to be either here or here. And let's see. And well, that's a single wide pleat. That seems interesting. Let's go with that. And I'm going to space things so I can have my my stuff going on. Let's see, that was going to overlap more yet. Okay. So I'm gonna go in and basically shove the pleats out of the way in the software. Okay. Let's see if that matches up. There we go. And that is enough for me to duplicate things around. I'm going to make sure before I copy things that I have one triangle that both of the modifications have been applied to. And I can get rid of that triangle. And this is basically the same idea as the drawing crease patterns and hexagonal symmetries. We just have different choices. So that is my central motif. And then I get to decide from there what twist to use next. And it's going to be a mixed depth twist. And since I decided I was going to do things alternating sides, it's going to be on the back side of the paper. And so it's going to be one of these two rhombuses, and I'm not sure which yet. And could also be one of these hexagons. So I'll copy all of those over so we can see on the different sides like what's going to happen with each of those. And the first thing I'm going to do is figure out which of my rhombuses is going to fit. And this is probably going to depend on how I rotated that trapezoid for its initial connection. And so one thing to notice, this is set up as a right-handed twist, but I need it to be left-handed. So I'm going to mirror across the vertical. And then I'm going to find an edge where that's going to match up. And that is going to be the matching edge. And what I notice here is that this pleat is not in that direction. So this will not be the rhombus that matches, which is not exactly good news. This one was also right-handed, so I need to mirror it to make it left-handed. And bring that down in. And I'm going to find where it connects up. I need to extend this mountain one spacing, and I can go ahead and say that this rhombus is going to be a position of twofold rotational symmetry, so I can draw things more easily. And I'm going to shrink all these extra bits so they're out of the way. And I can go ahead and do that on the other side of the rhombus as well. So that is going to be a tight fit. What's going on with this rhombus is that if the pleat, like the flap of paper here was folded all the way over, and the flap of paper over here was folded all the way over, it would self-intersect. That's why in here it's labeled self-intersecting. but it's still useful because if your next twist is close enough, you can avoid that issue. So when this folds, this mountain fold will come in 2 grid spacings on here, and then it'll have something folded. It'll be able to cut out this way, I do believe. This might not actually be foldable. And let me see if I have another option for these guys. Well, there's that option. And so I could, yeah, that's not an option I want to play with for the first time today. But there are other options. But what I'm going to say about this particular thing is you should do a test fold with that rhombus and this trapezoid next to it to see if it works out, because it very well may not. And I can do a little bit of reasoning by analogy, which is that I know another pattern that I used, not photos, a crease pattern, that had that same property that does work. And so I can check and see, oh, okay. It's going to be all right. Because I know this one works, and it has 2 spacings until the pointy end of the trapezoid. And so I'm going to definitely be okay here. And that is this pink one in gear, where I have these trapezoid bits overlapping each other, but not self-intersecting. So that is good news. Good news indeed. So that will work out. It'll just be a bit of a pain. And when I have these self-intersecting things, that often means that you'll need to pre-crease everything. So that's one option. And whenever we're using the rhombus, either the friendly rhombus or the unfriendly rhombus, the one that doesn't self-intersect or the one that does self-intersect like this one, will work out depending on which way you chose to attach your trapezoids. So let's pick another edge and put another twist there. And actually I can see that all of these hexagons are right-handed too, so I'm going to go ahead and flip them so they're left-handed and useful for our purposes. And I'm going to rotate this one so it attaches somewhere else. And I can see, yeah, that'll attach. No problem. I can go ahead and change up my pleat depths as needed. I'm gonna scooch this out of the way to, so that needed to be all the way there. So I can edit everything. That one back. And I needed to extend the mountain of the single depth pleat and bring the double depth pleat back in line. Okay. So once I've edited the sides of that hexagon, it's gonna fit in, and I can do like all of my repeats with that. And likewise for these mixed depth, sorry, the 2-fold hexagons. And this one is going to need another triangle attached to it. So actually this is a great little lesson in how to find that, because we can actually do all 4 of these options on this same little bit of tessellation start. That's neat. Okay, so if I've got these 2, and I'm gonna need a triangle in here so that I can continue out and continue folding, I can see that my valley folds are going to hit the next mountain down here, and I needed to extend that 3 spaces to get that to hit. One of the things that I can do is say, I want to draw this triangle, and I'm going to select this line so I can copy. There we go. And I'm going to duplicate that and just draw my triangle as I need it. Scoot that back. And that is pretty much guaranteed to work out. Sometimes it'll be a triangle on the back side, but that's going to be my triangle in here. And then when I'm editing the pleats, I just want to make sure that on the opposite side, I match up with these, and I can go ahead and select these 3 lines that are forming my triangle, group them, and now I'm good to go copying that everywhere. And then with the other mixed depth hexagon, I'm going to rotate that and slap it in here, duplicate, rotate again, slap it in here. I need to find the triangle that's going to work out with these, and it's looking like, so with the single depths, I have those in my template, and this is going to be, it looks like either double or triple open. I'm going to go with double open, and it's going to be right-handed, because what we saw in our tiling diagram is that, well, this one, so I started with a right-handed hexagon in the center because that's my my MO. That's how I do things. And then when I'm doing rotated grids, I don't have to constantly be checking what rotation I used in the center. So that triangle is red, which means it's also right-handed. And I can go back to my template and find the right-handed double open triangle and plop that in there. And it matches up the same way on both of those pleats to the next hexagon. So that's awesome. We can go ahead and say, case closed, we've got our triangles. Now there's going to be some cases where you go to put in that next triangle, and the thing that's going to work out is one of these. And these are cursed triangle twists. They are not fun to fold. And they're especially not fun to fold on a teeny tiny grid when you haven't pre-creased them. And so that is why I was excited to find the alternative repeat style that didn't need that triangle to be in a position of 3-fold rotational symmetry, because now we can just use whatever triangle we want there, probably closed on the front or closed on the back, and then make the next triangle do the work of being the symmetric point. So that's what's going on when you're looking for, okay, what could come next here. So from this pretty arbitrary start that I defined of open hexagon, open triangles at tube pleat spacing on the opposite side, closed trapezoid on the hexagon side. And by the way, this is going to be some nice backlighting because of the single depth tube here. So we're going to get like an outline around the central hexagon, which is neat. It's probably not going to be like exactly hexagon shaped because things are going to move around with the twists, but it's going to be like a spiky frame situation. It's going to be cool. And then we can either repeat that as densely as possible with this rhombus, or we can repeat it a little bit less densely, and we're actually going to get, I can see where this pleat is going, tube pleat spacing between that and the next repeat, which is nice because it means that these single wide pleats aren't going to be stacking on top of each other. They're going to be like right next to each other instead. So that's neat. And then up here with these fat two-fold mixed depth hexagons, we're going to have this crazy double open, double depth triangle that's just going to be huge and dominate the space. So I probably won't end up folding that one. And then we've got these two-fold skinny mixed depth hexagons, and again we've got the tube pleat between the frame and the triangle, so that would be pretty cool as well. One thing I might also try with this is to just do a closed triangle there and then have the copies be more separated. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different designs that I've verified will work just by sketching this. And that was starting from an arbitrary choice of hexagons and triangles and trapezoids and what orientation the trapezoid was. And there it goes, boom, 5 different designs. So yeah, you can really find a lot of different variations here. And then the folding is going to want to pay attention to these rings around the center, trying to, so what I would recommend actually, if you're going to attempt this for the first time, I would recommend getting a pattern like cogs, the blue one here, from the Advent of Tess ebook, and do the center and then out to this next tiling break and see how that's working out. And then maybe try with the two-fold mixed depth hexagons, probably the skinny ones, because I haven't actually published, well, once Crown of Thorns is on my Instagram, then I'll publish a crease pattern for the fat mixed depth hexagons. But another good thing to try is using these three-fold mixed depth hexagons and just going out to this blue ring. You could, of course, go further out, but you're probably going to be relying on the edge of the paper to take care of some of those pleat overlaps that show up. Yeah, you could also resolve this space with a rhombus and a trapezoid and a triangle maybe. But it's, yeah, you're not going to get great options for how to resolve the edge if you want a pleated border. So yeah, there's a ton to explore here, and most of it has never been seen before. So, oh, I missed a comment from earlier on about where the trapezoid is. I'm guessing that's in the crease pattern. So this shape that looks like a rhombus has some extra funny business where the fourth pleat, instead of coming out this way, is going that way. And so these mountains are making a crow's foot. So we've got the three that are making the foot, and then the double depth pleat going the other direction. That is fitting in a trapezoid tile. And to see it a little bit more clearly, we can take a look at it here. So we've got the standard open trapezoid, and then we have this closed trapezoid that has this notched structure. So it's just shifting this pleat over one spacing, whereas if it was coming, if the mountain was here and the valley was here, it would look like one of these trapezoids. And I can actually show you that directly because it matches up all except that one pleat. So that's our trapezoid there. And yeah, that's what's going on with these. And one distinction between these patterns and some of the other patterns that I do with trapezoids is that these have a hexagon in the center. A lot of my other patterns with trapezoids are just trapezoids and triangles, maybe trapezoids, triangles, and rhombuses. But these have a hexagon, and that's going to change the symmetry. It's going to mean, for the most part, it's going to mean that we don't do isoarea patterns in these. Whereas if you have trapezoids in triangular structures or in columnar structures, you're going to have the option for things to be isoarea. And yeah, we have different possibilities for the repeats that go further out. So that's what's going on in the theoretical space for hexagon, then triangle, then trapezoid. I really do hope that you go and try some of these patterns for yourself. I have crease patterns available in the Advent of Tess ebooks, or I should say the 2023 ebook where I use the trapezoids in this way. And there's, yeah, just so many options to explore in this very fertile ground for exploration. One other thing that I want to say before I sign off is that these shapes that I put around the outside on the back of the paper, they could totally also be on the front of the paper. I just wanted for this particular setup in the beginning to have my repeats fairly contained. So that's all for today. Happy folding, and I'll see you next time.